From the people who help you know your competition, IntelliCheck presents the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast. The Multi-Point Inspection Podcast brings you news and stories from the automotive world told in an informative and entertaining way. Previously on the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast.
That's a huge thing, right? Everybody thinks, oh my God, ChatGPT is taking the marketer's job and the lawyer's job. It's not true. Humans still need to be there for certain tasks.
So the presentation we're going to do is called AI Friend or Foe.
We're talking all about how conversational AI is revolutionizing the automotive industry.
First, the understanding that a lot of our DMS data is dirty. So a lot of it is a lot of duplicate contacts, a lot of people that are missing information.
As far as the subject matter, we just say, you need to write about something that you are exceptional at, not something that you want to talk about, but something you've already proven yourself to be exceptional at doing.
In this first episode of the summer, I wanted to dig a little deeper into how AI technology is being utilized in the dealership. In episode 11 of the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast, Ron Overs, the publisher of Fixed Ops magazine, mentioned the importance of dealerships embracing this new technology.
And then number two is adapting the new technologies that are in the marketplace. You hear today about AI everything, right? If it's not Microsoft, it's Google, it's everybody has got some new artificial intelligence module that's helping them do things.
In episode 12, we learned about how Brooke.ai is helping free up the BDC to make more outbound calls.
First of Brooke.ai, which is the very first digital voice assistant for automotive that can answer, handle, and appoint all your inbound service calls.
So it was only fitting that this episode should feature a dealership that is putting these things into action. And to bring all of this full circle, Musick, strategy and BDC manager at North Georgia Toyota, just happens to be on the cover of the latest issue of Fixed Ops magazine.
This was all new to me. Proactive reached out to me to ask me if I would do a segment on Ted Ing's Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ashley, you brought a new superstar to the Fixed Ops Roundtable, I see.
I did. We brought a new friend.
Musick from North Georgia Toyota. JD, welcome. First time to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
It is. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You know, I was nervous. I'd never done anything like that before. They sent me a list of questions that we would go over, and I prepared some answers and got those back to Ted so that we could know the direction the conversation was going to go. And then after that, Proactive reached out to me and asked me if I would be interested in being interviewed for an article in Fixed Ops Digital. And again, that was a new experience to me. I was a little hesitant at first, but I agreed to it. And they did the same thing, sent me some questions, answered for questions. Then we got on a phone call and dug in a little deeper. And again, this is all a new experience for me. But so we're just trying to, as a dealership, recognizing that, a lot of stuff's changing right now. But we're okay kind of sharing some of our philosophy and our strategy on how we're embracing technology to improve just the overall experience customers have with our dealership. And I think that, if we can share what we're doing and it helps the perception of this industry, because dealers start to kind of maybe change some of their attitude towards, as well as I do, that this industry probably has a negative stereotype out there. And at times it's earned. But I really believe that we're doing things differently here and putting our customers first, in sales and service. And we're okay sharing kind of what we're doing. And if we can kind of begin to change that perception of the car dealership as a whole, we think that's a good thing.
When this superstar first came to North Georgia Toyota, he had no experience in the auto industry, but landed a position in sales.
I guess everybody kind of has their, career choice, things they would like to try. And on my list was car sales. And so that's kind of been there for a while. And when I first moved to Dalton, I was looking for a job and walked in the door at the Toyota dealership here. and brought my resume, came in a suit and a tie, kind of everything you're supposed to do when you're looking for a job. And they offered me a job in sales. I didn't have any experience in the auto industry, didn't have any real sales experience, finished in college, and they offered me the sales position. And, one thing led to another. I'm probably not the greatest salesman you'll ever encounter, but I like getting to know people. I like kind of solving problems and helping people. And that kind of led to how can we better set up this process and kind of the whole process of selling, from taking a lead to reaching out to the customer. How do we maintain contact through email, text, phone calls, all of these things that are becoming more and more important because you're seeing fewer and fewer customers just show up on the lot. You're having to, customers inquire, you reach out to them, you try to set an appointment to get them to the lot. So the technology and the computers have really revolutionized everything, obviously, but also, this industry, customers are able to do more research without having to come to the dealership. They have more information. They know what their car's worth. So the issue has become, how do you meet the customer where they're at today, since we can't just wait on them to show up on the lot and then proceed to, start the whole process. So I enjoy that side of this a lot. A lot more than maybe sitting out front and waiting on a customer to show up. And so that naturally kind of gravitated me more towards what the industry calls the BDC side of a dealership. And, one thing led to another, and that's kind of where I'm at in the BDC side of the sales and service departments now. So anything to do with technology, whether that's, your basic CRM stuff, kind of our marketing, all the way down to kind of some of the newer technology we're using with AI, anything that we do, it kind of goes through me, and I kind of vet and set up the process, how we're going to utilize it, what's coming down the pipeline in terms of, technology, how can we utilize this to our benefit, how can we utilize this to the customer's benefit, all of those things, just kind of overseeing how all of these pieces work together.
And JD says that the COVID-19 pandemic was a big reason for North Georgia Toyota to look at alternatives with technology.
Obviously, this industry and a lot of others kind of went through struggles finding employees, having to work from home, all of that kind of sped things up and, became an issue. So we had to figure out, how can we work from home when an employee has to work from home because they're sick or they got somebody sick in the house. So that, that kind of forced us to look at things outside of, what we were normally doing. So that led us to how do we make phone calls? All of that technology has existed for a while. Other industries have used it a lot, but in the auto industry, it's been maybe slower to embrace. How can we let employees work from home? How do we create that work-life balance to where somebody has the freedom when they need to work from home? All of that stuff is just so important in creating a good atmosphere for the employees and being flexible and recognizing that, we are having, and continue to have shortages in terms of employees. So how do we adjust what we're doing to fit the needs of our employees so that they can in return provide the good customer service that we expect? Any of our service BDC employees, if they need to, they can work from home. I'm still not convinced that that's the best approach. I think things work a little better when you're in store or, at the dealership. But having the flexibility, if need be, to be able to work from home and still be able to make phone calls to customers, still be able to follow up, still be able to take inbound phone calls, it's kind of a good safety net there.
JD also says that these advances in technology also help with employee retention and a better overall experience for the customer.
It's important to me to be able to say to an employee that, hey, my kid's sick. I really can't afford to take the time off of work, but also my kid's sick. And so being able to say, hey, if you need to work from home today, that's fine. We can work around your schedule. We can make this work somehow. I try to be really, really fair in that. Maybe some of my life story creates that desire to be able to, allow that parent to stay home if need be with their sick kid without taking a financial hit. That kind of stuff's important. And I think that, like I said, technology allows us to do that. I believe that creates a more loyal employee, showing that we're willing to work around the schedule and truly meaning it. Like I said, it's not the ideal in my mind that they work from home, but being able to provide that flexibility that, hey, you can still work some leads, you can still take phone calls, you can still schedule appointments, and you can do it from home if you need be. That's important to me. if an employee is stressed financially or they're not able to work today because their kid's sick, that's going to have an impact across the board. A happy employee that's going to translate over to how they treat our customers. So all of those things are just really important kind of core ideas and philosophies that we have that, we take care of our employees. We try to work around their schedule. And that happiness, we believe, gets translated over to our customers. A miserable employee is going to get miserable customer service.
And one technology that North Georgia Toyota has implemented is Brooke.ai, which was featured in episode 12 of the Multi-Point Inspection podcast.
We've been with Brooke about a year now. As kind of a hobby, and maybe this makes me sound kind of nerdy, but I kind of enjoy the programming side of doing different things with data. Real rudimentary stuff, but like, pulling in this data source and merging with this data source and all that kind of stuff. So I have a decent comprehension of how that works. And that's a big part of what Brooke's doing on the back end is she's accessing our customer data and then is able to set an appointment based off of that integration. So customer calls in, obviously the phone number pops up. And so she's able to access our database based on the phone number. And that lets her know who's calling, what their vehicle is, and she can proceed to book an appointment based on that information. You need good, clean data. So if a customer calls in and the phone number is tied to multiple vehicles, and because we've not done a good job of removing vehicles that the customer no longer owns, then she may run into some confusion there on which vehicle we're trying to service. She may say, are you calling about the 2014 Camry? And the customer says, I sold that 2 years ago. Why is that still in your database? And those kind of things are frustrating. So what we've got to do as a dealership is make sure that we're keeping that data cleaned. And part of that is implementing a process. When a customer's in front of us, hey, while I've got you in front of me, I just want to make sure we've got all this, the right phone number, the right email. Do you still own this vehicle? All of that kind of stuff that people are still going to have to do, ensuring that the data is clean so that the AI has good data to make decisions off of. But, she does a good job of accessing the data if we've kept it clean. The only other part that was kind of questionable on our mind was, how is she going to understand and comprehend customers? Because we've all kind of ran into the phone trees, when we're calling, your pharmacy to refill a prescription or, the IRS, heaven forbid, where, it doesn't understand what you're saying. You have to repeat yourself. And that was the hesitancy and kind of the fear that maybe we had going into it, that she wouldn't be able to comprehend. And that's just not proven to be a realistic fear. She understands multiple dialects. She understands me, but she understands people that sound a lot differently than me, which is really impressive in my opinion. So, there's not really a barrier to her understanding, the different ways people sound in English. So knowing that she can handle that, and understanding how the data back and forth works, the whole process has just worked seamlessly. I could confirm on my side that their data integration was set up right. I could see that, okay, so this is going to work because they've got it programmed this way. The question was always, how is she going to communicate and understand? And that was just alleviated with just experience, listening to her respond to customers, hearing what a customer is saying, and then so I could hear what our customer is asking, and I knew the answer, but then she knew the answer also. So there just wasn't that issue with her understanding what a customer was saying. It's just a few steps ahead of maybe what our experience has been when we contact, some of these other phone trees. But in fairness, we did put her, as the second option in our phone tree. So when you call a dealership, it's press 1 for sales, 2 for service. Right out of the gate, we did, once you press 2 for service, we did 1 to speak to a live person, 2 to schedule an appointment. So when somebody presses 2, that routes into Brooke. So it was important to us to give a customer the opportunity to speak with a live person first in the phone tree, just as kind of a safety net. Then, when we're talking with customers on the phone, letting them know that, hey, the next time you call in, you can actually press 2 to schedule an appointment and go through Brooke. And prior to launching Brooke, we built banners on our website. We put, the little flyers around the dealership introducing Brooke, letting people know what they could do to schedule an appointment with Brooke. And we tried to drive customers to using Brooke, because she's always available. She's there, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You're not going to be put on hold. And just maintaining kind of a positive attitude about using her. With some of the staffing shortages and not being able to staff 24 hours a day, she's done a good job of filling in that void. She schedules about probably for 1.5 employees. We only use her to schedule our express shop, which is, your routine maintenance. So any of your main shop issues that would require a diagnostic, those get routed directly to one of our agents so that they're able to better diagnose and book a time slot that may be a little more complicated than just an oil change. So just looking at kind of our express appointments that get booked at the dealership level, she does about the equivalent of 1.5 employees. So we're looking at, are there ways to utilize her for the main shop for repairs? But I'm not comfortable there in pulling the trigger yet, because that's a little more complicated. When somebody's coming in with my brakes are squeaking versus my car's turning off at a red light, it's hard to know how long that's going to take, diagnose, repair. And I'm just not comfortable yet, saying that you can have these blanket book this appointment regardless, because it's just a little more complicated to book appointments that way.
We'll learn about the other tools in the North Georgia Toyota arsenal, including Volley, ChatGPT, and IntelliCheck, after the break. And while you're reading the cover story featuring JD in Fixed Ops Magazine, check out pages 62 and 63, where you'll find IntelliCheck Service Price Report, where we compare prices for a synthetic oil and filter change in the Southeast region, featuring Atlanta, Georgia, Orlando, Florida, and Charlotte, North Carolina. And for $72.73 a month, you can get our local market suite, where you have access to our up-to-date competitive market intelligence tools and reports, a starting point for fine-tuning your service pricing strategy, competitor pricing data that helps you stay on top of competitor price changes service by service, and insight into your local market to help your service department thrive. Call 877-827-7273 or go to IntelliCheck.com to get your local market suite today.
So Volley is a communication platform. It's how I see it. So it pulls in all of our customer data in terms of ROs, and then we're able to build out these workflows that say, if it's been more than 4 months since a customer had a previous RO, we want to generate a phone call and a text message and an email to that customer. And then it kind of tees up those tasks to give the customer a call to schedule their next service appointment. So they have access to our DMS data and are able to schedule call task, email, and text message task off of that. It also integrates with Toyota, the connected services. So whenever a customer's maintenance light comes on, it sends a notification into Volley that then in return creates a call task for our BDC to reach out to that customer. So it's essentially it's a communication platform that, everything is self-contained. The CRM front has always been kind of geared towards sales. There's never been quite as much emphasis placed on the service side of CRMs. So, what we were using on the CRM front for sales just wasn't a good fit for the service department. We were looking for if there's something out there that we can use. And I reached out to Ashley with Proactive and telling her, what we were doing and what I was looking for. And she just said, hey, we use this company called Volley out of Tampa for all of our BDC communications. They run an in-house BDC for dealerships. And she was telling me about it and telling me just how impressed she was with it, how they're able to make so many phone calls and, they're so much more efficient with it. And she made the contact with Volley, set up a demo, and it kind of checked the boxes of what we were looking for. How do we take all of this data that we've got, these customer files for recalls, all of that kind of stuff, and put it into a platform that then sets up the call task or the contact attempts.
There's been a lot of talk of ChatGPT in the news of late, and JD has been experimenting with it. But he warns that this is still the early days of this technology, and dealerships need to be mindful of this fact.
It's definitely interesting. We're using it in some places on our website right now. Like I said, you've got to have a good foundation so that it knows how to respond. And that's kind of what we're learning, that you've got to have a good background and a good foundation for it to be successful. When we first launched it, I could go in and tell it as if I was a customer for future correspondence, respond to me like you're a pirate. And so then I could ask it, do you have any specials on Toyota Camrys? And it would respond to me, as if it was a pirate, which is funny, but at the same time, it's not really what you want to make sure that you have checks built in to where that kind of stuff can't happen, because there's some risk there that you don't necessarily want it to be so open. You need to be able to restrict it. And I'm okay with kind of learning and helping these companies we're using and kind of beta testing it. But things like that are, they're going to have to be worked out, and they're being worked out before I think it's ready for maybe just every dealership to embrace. And that's kind of not a very significant example, but you want to make sure that the customer can't go in and tell ChatGPT that, all cars have this discount on them, and then it reply when somebody asks for a discount. Those are the kind of things that, this is still very much the Wild West in how we're going to utilize it, how to best utilize it. These kind of things have to be worked out before I think it's truly ready for mass distribution at dealerships. It's cool in the sense that, like, I can program it to say, hey, it's Martin Luther King Day. So anytime, any inquiry that a customer makes into chat, maybe mention something about, hey, it's Martin Luther King Day or the 4th of July, and say, hey, before you sign off, tell them to have a happy, safe 4th of July. I don't know that those things are going to, they're not going to sell more cars, or they're probably not going to get more service business, but they add a nice touch to the communication. I do think is important. And so having that ability to utilize things like that is neat. And I think there's a lot of potential applications down the road that we're going to be able to utilize these things, but it's just very much early in the process. And how do we set this up to use in a way that creates a better customer experience, but not in a way that does damage to the dealership as well? And there's a lot of learning that's going on.
And then there's a tool that JD Musick and North Georgia Toyota use as part of their marketing strategy that's near and dear to my heart, and that's IntelliCheck.
I had only recently been turned on to it. Our GM maybe met with them at NADA and signed up for it, and then found out that Toyota or Southeast Toyota had been using them for kind of market research for a while, and we were able to go back and look at some of the research they'd already done. And, there's this perception that the dealerships are more expensive for everything. And IntelliCheck kind of confirms that that's not the case, that our prices match up very closely with our non-dealership competitors. That lets us know that our strategy maybe needs to shift a little bit. Instead of shifting to a pricing strategy and thinking that, we need to cut prices or we need to do these things to earn business, that there's maybe something else that we need to be doing a better job of. Because, if we're losing customers to third-party competitors, it's not on price. So it maybe it's customer service, or maybe it's how long it takes to get an oil change. That may be where we're losing customers, not on price. Just having access to that data that they're able to provide gives us a good plan of how we're going to proceed, and maybe takes off some of the knee-jerk response to cutting price to earn business, when it may be, improving the customer experience while we're here. The natural response is to think, we need to, if we want to get more business, we need to cut prices. And that's on the sales and service side. And I think that, we're starting to see that price is not necessarily the only determining factor on whether we earn business. Sometimes it really is a good customer experience. That we like to say that you don't necessarily have to be the cheapest, but you need to be good. You've got to have good customer service, and people will pay a premium for that. I think we're seeing that on the sales side and the service side is that, if we're competitive on price and provide superior customer service, that's going to drive all the business that we can handle. And IntelliCheck does a good job of giving us that pricing data to confirm that we're in the market. So it allows us to, like I said, better focus on, what we need to be focusing on instead of just cutting price to drive business.
JD says that of his opinion of AI overall, he believes that it's a great tool that can and does help dealerships, but that we must proceed with caution.
There's definitely a lot of ethical considerations that need to be weighed. I don't look at it as something that we're going to utilize to eliminate jobs, but I look at it as something that will allow our employees to better engage with customers by taking away some of the monotonous task of the job. So the just hammering out emails, hammering out text messages, things like that, AI does a great job so that our employees can, kind of better utilize their time and actually be on the phone with customers, speaking with customers, and really shining there. But I think that, there are the ethical considerations. I mean, I think, inevitably somebody's going to try to use this to eliminate employees. That's something that's going to have to be considered. And beyond just this industry, how is AI going to affect jobs? I try to be mindful of that and understand that there's a lot of people that are fearful. And it's probably, I guess, the fear in AI for a lot of folks is something that maybe blue-collar factory workers have dealt with for a long time when they look at, how automation has taken away a lot of their jobs. And now AI comes along and probably creates that same fear that blue-collar factory workers have dealt with for a long time. And there's going to be a lot of interesting academic research going into this. And I think there's a lot to learn from how the two are related in terms of robotics and how they've maybe taken jobs from factory workers to how AI is going to take a lot of white collar jobs at some point down the road. And how do we implement this in society and for the betterment of society, but being mindful of the fears that a lot of people are going to have. It's certainly complicated. But I mean, I don't know that you can unring the bell. So, it's going to happen. So I think for the dealerships that are maybe slow to embrace it, I mean, I would advise being cautious and recognize that there's going to be a lot of businesses pop up that are claiming, we're using AI or we're doing this with AI. And there's kind of a low barrier to entry in terms of starting an AI business. So that's going to create that Wild West, everybody's going to be doing it. And there's going to be a lot of folks that are doing it poorly. And I would definitely proceed cautiously. If you're looking at it, proceed cautiously and make sure you have somebody or a good network of people that are giving good advice and not just sign up with the first person that comes along and claims AI usage. There's potential issues here, and making sure that, AI is giving good answers and that it's pulling from a good source of data. All of those things are important. If your database is, not very clean and you've got a lot of junk data or, you've not built it out properly, you're going to give customers bad answers. And then at that point, you're kind of harming that customer experience.
I'd like to thank JD Musick for sharing his strategies used at North Georgia Toyota. You can find the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And be sure to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps with the algorithm thingy. Executive producer for the Multi-Point Inspection Podcast is David Swan. It is written, produced, and narrated by me, Brandon Barnett. This episode's featured music is Sunkissed, also by me. IntelliCheck. Know your competition.